It is nice to write if you love writing, but write a poem. Don't write an email. Right? You know those long email chains where you're answering a bunch of questions? Like, who knows? Those are actually useful for AI because it's good context, right? I almost don't like the word data. It just feels so uncreative. It's really just another layer of context. So I think as designers, we have to start not shying away from it. Take some time to vision what the system solution would be for your firm and maybe thinking, okay, I can make data-driven decisions now easily. I think then you can think about, well, what should we be doing with that saved time? We should be thinking about design. We should curve it from, instead of 10% creative design and 10% of my time, it should be 50%. Maybe the output it gives you isn't the same version as the one you produce in InDesign, right? And has all the variables that you typically use. So what I find with when I use AI the most is I have to be less picky about what the deliverable will be, because it's more about the data than it is about the deliverable at that point.
Welcome to the Light Pod, built by Light Eye, the #1 podcast when it comes to thought-provoking and inspirational conversations around the people, the process, and the product of design, all with a little love for light along the way. I'm your host, Sam Corbel, and today we welcome Paul Boken to the podcast to discuss what it means to design intelligently, to explore the world of data and not only how it can be utilized, but what AI is doing to make that accessible and easily implemented into everyday design workflows. A once dedicated lighting designer is now a very much present tech entrepreneur. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Sam. It's good to be here. When we did our first podcast, I loved it, so I'm so happy you invited me back.
Your journey has evolved since then. We were catching up a little bit before we hit record today, and I'm excited to help kind of peel back the onion on things that aren't obvious, but are totally relevant and prevalent in design almost unanimously. Data is a ubiquitous and boring word sometimes. Yeah. But if you could jazz data up, if you could talk about, where is it at today and how might we think about that, what would you say?
I'm also of the mind that I almost don't like the word data. It just feels so uncreative as a creative mind to even think about data-driven decisions, data-driven decisions. It's such a tech thing. It's such a PhD doctorate in marine or in biology or something, you know what I mean? It's such a, so when I think maybe we should reframe, is it, the data is so accessible now and the ability to process it is so much easier because of AI, obviously, that is it really just context? Context is a designy word. We think about context all the time, and we make design decisions based upon different types of context. And I think that's what it is. It's so accessible now. If you kind of understand where to get it from and what to talk to get insights on it, then or what tools to use to get insights on it. It's really just another layer of context that's now part of your creative process, I think, if that makes sense. That kind of if we just, for the rest of the conversation, instead of using data, we talk about just having more context in your design decisions.
Yeah,
that's the way I look at it.
I think that does a nice job of making this a hell of a lot more relatable. Because when I think of data, I think of Excel spreadsheets.
Totally.
Right? And spreadsheets are just a way of organizing that data. It's not really even an analogy. It's just a direct correlation, right?
Yeah.
When you think about the context that needs to be created around design and data, where is design using this every day, all day, but we might not think about it that way?
When I think of programming in a large building, I think, architects have been really investing a lot in that programming element. What ratio of space can we makes sense in a building like this, and how can we fit it into a form? Like I do see Autodesk and a lot of big tech companies investing a lot in like those kinds of decisions, because that's so many data points that need to be taken into account to kind of make it work, because we kind of know what ratio of space needs to be in a building for different uses, but then you also want to have a building in a form that's beautiful and striking and engaging. So like we've been using data like that. I think architects have really been using, and Autodesk was studying that for years, just automatically kind of configuring space based upon data, because humans doing that is so inefficient. So I think, because it's just so many points to calculate. So I see it being used there already, but when it comes to just like the average person, we talked about, what's the average, if we think about lighting firm, it's like, 3 or 4 people, in a firm, and how do they use it, right? And like how I use it as an example in my day-to-day as a tech founder is when I need to complete a task, especially with AI, I take the time I open like a chat in ChatGPT-4 or something, right? And I take the time to start just programming the variables into it, even in just natural language. Just like I'll give it an Excel spreadsheet that says, here are calculations on this certain topic. Say I'm going to do an investor meeting and I want to prepare some written slides or something. I'll like throw in our financial model, I'll just start like peppering it with all of this data. And then I ask it just a question in natural language. I love that it's so accessible. I don't have to be some data scientist, trying to build this database that's going to give me an answer. I can just throw all this crazy data into it randomly and then ask it a question, like a very simple question. It gives me this like beautiful answer in plain English, analyzing 20,000 points of data. And I'm like, it still blows me away. So I think what AI is doing is it's making it easier for us to use that data. So I think as designers, we have to start like not shying away from it and maybe thinking, okay, I can make data-driven decisions now easily, right? In a very like soft kind of conversational way, right? It's not this the heavy lift like it used to be to make data-driven decisions, if that makes sense.
No, I think it makes perfect sense. When you look at the current landscape of design, where do you think that instance is starting to emerge in terms of people are realizing, there's something that may be able to help me get this done?
What's changed is the lift to gain insights from all that data is like non-existent. It's no lift. Like we talked about the example of like Microsoft Copilot and you saying, how many emails have I sent to this person last month? Like that's data that you've always had, but you could never gain any insight from that, because how would you do that? How would you even go about doing that, right? Now you just write it in a sentence. So I think what designers need to really think about is, okay, how do I evolve my process such that data is something that I can easily get into an AI model to gain insights from it. So it's a lot of potentially centralizing those processes such that, that data is easily trainable by AI, if that makes sense. So taking processes like the Sourcery example, of course, is the product information. If you centralize that product information, you can expose it to an AI model and ask it any damn question you want. Last night, someone was asking me, it'd be so cool to know how much I specify in a year. And it's like, that's an easy thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's easy in a way.
Don't
right?
you have a fixed schedule for every project? Doesn't Revit count everything in the model for you?
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, the models are different. Poor lighting designers, the models usually owned by architects. So like it's not, that data isn't as central, right, in the model. Because the models, in the Revit model, it's not as centralized that you can kind of pool it in one spot to gain insight. Excel, potentially, depending on how you use it. But without getting into the weeds, I think it's about thinking about how you can evolve processes to very easily allow an AI model to be trained on it. So it's all that information communication is centralized so that you can ask it, what's my favorite downlight? You know what I mean? That seems like a very simple question, but that's actually really good information.
You can do that today.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like,
Yeah.
what do you do? Do you say, like, I'm just gonna, have it scrape all my fixture schedules and my favorite's gonna be classified by quantity of specification? Like,
Yeah.
you would have to give it a couple insights or a little bit of context,
Sure.
like we talked about earlier.
That's the next question. Gives you an answer you don't like. You're like, you specified this one most. And you're like, but I'm more thinking like, what are the ones that I specify on some of my larger projects that are like, say, then you think I want the really good quality one that are on like, civic projects or something, like then there's the next question you ask it to drill down to maybe get the highest quality or the one that your team seems to use most on a certain project type. Because that's really good data, because then you can start thinking about that downlight. Why do we use it? Is it actually the best one? Maybe you find out that you're using one, you're like, I don't like that. Why do we use that in everything? Right? As it's not a big lift. But I think probably the thing we have to give up as designers to take advantage of that is the output that we produce. I find a lot of designers are hesitant to change a process like that and move it into a centralized process, because when you start, maybe AI builds the schedule as an example, maybe the output it gives you isn't the same version as the one you produce in InDesign, right? And has all the variables that you typically use. So what I find with when I use AI the most is I have to be less picky about what the deliverable will be in the end. Does that make sense? Because what's the point in having all that automation if you're then taking it and trying to send it to the world in the box that you've been sending it to the world in for the last 20 years? It's going to be different. The output is different too when you make data-driven decisions. And I think one thing about the data set is it's also about the information really should only be in one spot. So if you have deliverables where you have like the color temperature on the Excel spreadsheet, and then you mark it up on the cut sheet markup, and then you produce some sort of fancy InDesign presentation that you send, right? That information is in 3 or 4 different spots at that point. And generally speaking, when you change one, are you changing the rest? And it's hard also to train a model on data that's disparate. It should all be in one spot. So I think it's a lot of, to make data-driven decisions with anything, it is really thinking about what are the tools you use to collect that data and centralize it, make it easy to train. And by doing that, you're probably going to have to let go of a lot of the things that you've done in the past as far as what your deliverable is to your end consumer. Probably needs to simplify a little bit, because it's more about the data than it is about the deliverable at that point, if that makes sense. So the information, how you present it, how you collect it, how you edit it, where it exists, should all be based around centralizing it and making it easy to train on. And then you can talk to it. You can literally just talk to it nowadays. Like, that's crazy. You could just have a conversation with 40 years of lighting schedules. Like, that's so cool.
What can the community do today? What can, an architect, a lighting designer, an interior designer do with the tasks at hand and like physically deploying these ideas and solutions?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what I think you could do like tomorrow, and what I have essentially entirely replaced with AI is what letter comes after what letter in the alphabet when you're writing. Like, what word comes after what word? Like, that is a lot. How much time do we spend writing emails, site reports? Like, that's all what letter comes after what letter. That is like that level of prediction AI has nailed. So what does that mean? Like, I do a bit of consulting to #entrepreneur, right? I do everything to make it work. And I was doing a site report the other day. And I test AI all the time. I get excited when I'm like, I got to write a site report. I haven't done this in a while. I got 5 minutes because I got to do something else. I'm leaving to go to some meeting and I have 5 minutes. I'm like, let's do this. I get excited. And I took the proposal, because the proposal has scope in it. that says what I'm supposed to be doing on that project. And I remember I broke out in the proposal that step 1 was a site visit and a site report, and I outlaid what I'd be looking at. To drop that into ChatGPT. There was an email that the architect sent me that had a bunch of questions that I answered. Boom, dropped all that into ChatGPT, right? And there was like one other piece of context from an email that I dropped in. And I was like, can you write me a site report, please, for this? And then give it to me in a Word doc. It was beautiful. I didn't have to touch it. It went through my scope. It pulled out what points I should be covering in that site visit. It pulled out the email context from all the conversations I had where I, those long email chains, we were answering a bunch of questions. Like, who knows? Those are actually useful for AI because it's good context, right? It produced like in literally 3 minutes, like the most beautiful site report, full report on what happened, what the solutions are, and gave it to me in a Word doc. I sent it just like that. I didn't get precious about the format of that damn thing. I didn't get precious about my logo necessarily being on it for the initial draft, right? So again, I took what was given to me, from all that data and what AI had produced, and I sent it. And AI allows you to build like pre-trained chats, right, that you can save. So I have like an email writing, like it just lets me build my own like chat bot for email writing that's in my style.
Did you load 20 emails into it, or did you just start using it?
I just started using it. I didn't go crazy. I gave it some context as to what I am. I didn't actually give it an email because it gets them when I put it in. So what I do is I go into, because the text ability in the chat isn't so good, I'll write the email. I'll put it up, and like I joke, like a 10-pound gorilla, I mash that keyboard. Spelling mistakes, just horrible. Looks like if someone saw the email before I just copy and paste that into my email bot, they think I was like a 10-year-old, basically. I'm like bam, 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 mashing it, and then it just produces it. And now that's every single email I do that because there's always that 15 minutes you spend, maybe 10, fine-tuning it, the formatting, right? And now the formatting, it formats it perfectly. It's just beautiful. And so I don't write email. But the lesson there is you have to if you really want to say, I don't want to spend any more time on that as a team. We cannot be spending more time on this as a team. You probably have to think about, again, the output that AI produces when you ask it to do something and accepting that as the final result. And then not going all human and crazy on it and designy and making it perfect in your right format. Like change your format. The format that ChatGPT, that's your new format for site visits. Does that make sense? Like it's just...
Call your favorite client.
Yeah.
Call your 3 favorite clients. Say, hey, tell me what you value the most. I guarantee you they're not going to say how pretty everything looks. Maybe they will. I don't know everyone's clients. But they'll probably say in one of those top 3 things, will you get me what I need?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then it looks good in the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually trained Sourcery on all of our product data in the community. So you can like ask it to recommend a track light and it'll search the community and find it. Part of that was a spreadsheet that had a bunch of links on it, 600 links. And when we did that export, it pulled the wrong link structure, basically. So the idea is we had to go back and redo it. And I was like, oh, maybe AI can. I just threw that spreadsheet and I was like, can you change it, removing this portion of the link? It just had some extra letters and numbers in it, right? And then give me the spreadsheet back. Like 20 seconds. It went through, changed all the links, sent me the Excel file back. Like I'm like, okay, great. I thought that was going to be a huge pain in the butt. So it's good. It's great at that.
Export a fixture schedule.
Yeah.
In whatever platform you're using today.
Yeah.
And say, can you change everything that's 2,700K to 3,000K?
Yeah.
And probably after the 4th time, it would know what you meant.
Yeah.
Specific examples on line items of, part numbers with 27K versus 2700 versus, 227 no K or whatever.
Yep.
And it doesn't forget.
It doesn't forget. So I think it's about getting really excited about what it can do. And every time you get a task, like how I started really using it is just trying to automate it every time. And it never lets me down. It just does it.
You definitely want a co-pilot, no pun intended, Microsoft, that's not going to let you down. Designers are selling their time, right? It's a professional services business. They bill for their time. the goal is to spend less time, right? Yeah. Have better margins, all this other stuff. When you look at the amount of time that's spent actually being creative as a designer,
yeah,
versus doing other things,
so 10%.
So 10% of your time as a designer right now. If designers added an extra 5% temporarily, how much could they then gain back?
Oh, well, yeah, 5% investing and trying to automate it, 50% of their time. I don't know. It's miraculous, right? Like it's miraculous how much of a superpower bolt-on it is, for humanity. And I think it does something that always kind of drove me nuts about being a consultant and billing by hour. The universally accepted thought is that if you're charging by the hour, you cannot scale. That is not a scalable business. But I think AI, because of your ability to build context over time, which is data, makes design scalable. So it does. And I think as a firm, and I do a little bit of advisory work for some firms, and I'm kind of thinking about how I get back into design. I'm really obsessed with this idea of how you make that what is typically not scalable, which is when you charge by the hour, right? I have a lawyer friend, and he always said, yeah, I like this work, but it's just like, to me, I'm the same as I go to McDonald's or go to Starbucks and there's the person at the window. I'm the same. I charge by the hour, right? I charge more, but I just charge by the hour. And that you have to do timesheets. And we were talking about this last night too. But AI makes it scalable. 100% it does. Because when you do one thing, you should not ever have to do it again, right? As long as you do it in the right place, and in a place that you can train an AI to do it for you next time. So it's like a system. We're talking about like that point solution versus system solution thing with AI. And you have to start thinking about, what's the system solution for my firm for AI? One example of that, like electricity in manufacturing, right? When the electricity came, the point solution was to replace that big steam engine that powered your whole plant with a series of belts. Like one steam engine would power all the machinery in your plant, right? You would have like a master belt that went up to a distributed system of belts and pulleys in the ceiling that would turn all the machines. The point solution where we are now is you just replace that steam with electric. And you're like, amazing. This is amazing. This thing does all the work of that big steam engine. I can turn it off and on. I can do this and speed control, whatever. And then the kind of this, that system solution, was then, okay, then you moved, now all of a sudden you put motors in every machine, like electric motors. So the initial was just replacing the steam engine with the electric, but then the system solution became putting motors in every single piece of machinery, which means if one went down, the whole factory wouldn't go down, right? Where when you had a single engine, if one machine was operating, or malfunction, you had to shut everything down. So then there's efficiencies that came with that, manufacturing on demand, and nowadays, there's 100 motors in your house, or something. If you just you think about it, everything, the fans and stuff, So we were talking about that with airports, and I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I went to a talk and someone said, well, what's a system solution in airports? And he walked everyone through it. And he's like, well, obviously with AI, like traffic prediction is kind of solved at this point, right? As far as, things like Waze and Google Maps will tell you if there's traffic. So when that gets better and you actually can predict it, then it's like exactly how long it's going to take to get to the airport. And then we have driverless cars, so we take human error out of it. So we have less of those like accidents out of nowhere. That just doesn't happen. So now you know exactly when you have to leave the house and get to the airport. Security lines, it's all predictive if we even have that. So what does that mean? That means that you can show up to the airport now the half hour before your flight. So do you need food and beverage and retail in an airport? I would say no. I say the modern airport is just like very basic interface to get you on the plane, and there's no retail or food and beverage because you don't need it. The whole reason you need it is because you have to spend 3 hours there twiddling your thumbs. So that's like a system solution. And then that's when I light up. I'm like, whoa, what does that mean for lighting design? As an example.
What does it mean for design in general?
Yeah. Yeah, design, yeah.
Let's just pick on lights. You have all these components in a building. Simplest example, wall washers are installed in a corridor. The architect changes the finish from a matte reflectance value of above 80%
Yeah.
to a glossy,
Yeah.
dark surface
Yeah.
because the owner walked in yesterday.
Yeah.
You could program two details in to your design model with a parameter around reflectance values and matte versus glossy. And those could be verified by you as a lighting designer. And it would just change automatically when the architect changed the finish. You'd see the updated model. You'd know why it changed.
Yeah, you get a
because know
notification to approve it or something.
Bingo. But like you are reacting in real time to the needs of the project by simply like taking an extra 20 minutes on the front end versus running frantically back to your computer at the 11th hour to change something, or even worse, getting real pissed off when you get to the job site and saying, we can't do this isn't going to work. And then you're, quote, the problem that needs a solution. But in fact, it was just, a failure in communication. So there's a system that could easily be created.
It will be that way, for sure. It will be that way. There is actually a book that Autodesk released. I don't know when it was. There was a quote in it I got the other day. While we're chatting, I'll look it up because I was just reading it in a reception. I think it is a kind of a good book. The Future of Making by Tom Wujek. He's like one of the thought leaders at Autodesk. And it said in it, when an industry becomes computable, it is forever changed, right? And I think it's to what degree. So in other words, what letter comes after what letter has been fully computable. It's fully predictable. Like that's where large language models started. That is fully computable, so it is forever changed. In other words, we should, it is nice to write if you love writing, but write a poem. Don't write an email. You know what I mean? Like do something else with your time. So I thought that was really insightful. If you could just assume that will be the reality, right? That all of that stuff, the circuiting in a building, like that can all just be automated. The selecting the fixture parameters that react to the building's materials, such as like the mounting hardware or finishes, right? Because there are rules that you can apply that can just automatically make those decisions for you based upon the standard set of rules. Like we're using 3500K in this building as an example, right? The trim color to match the ceiling finish. If the ceiling finish changes, the product code should all just change. Like I would say for sure that will be the case at some point, guaranteed. It's just when is it a priority is basically, as to when it happens, not if, when it becomes a priority. So take some time to vision what the system solution would be for your firm and make like an AI North Star. I'm making this up as I go along, but create like a North Star of what you envision you want to have fully automated in your firm and what you still want to do as a human in 5 years. And then just start kicking the can that every day, in that direction slowly. And I think you have to also, with intention, you should be replacing that time because you want people working in your firm. You don't want a firm where there's one founder and there's no people. It's all automated. Like I think then you can think about, well, what should we be doing with that saved time? We should be thinking about design. We should curve it from instead of 10% creative design and 10% of my time, it should be 50%. I can think about humans' health. We can sit around for an entire day and talk about what a healthy space might be, You, instead of like bing, 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 emails going off, worried about problems because you didn't change a variable that AI should just change for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like develop an AI North Star, as a firm and work there. Make it your own, and just kick the can every day that direction.
I like the North Star concept a lot. It sounds like, pick your quarterly or annual meeting that you have at a company.
Yeah.
And stop talking about it and start writing down goals around what you want to do. To your point, AI, if it does it once, can and should do it again for you.
Yes.
Don't ever don't ever default back to human power if AI gives you a result and you're happy with it.
Yeah.
Keep rolling with it. that's the power of AI, is it learns when you feed it context, when you feed it data.
Yeah,
Paul,
exactly.
Thank you for opening our minds a little bit more. It's fantastic to peel back the curtain, and I love how you have such a hybrid vision on both sides of this to share with us. People have conversations if they want to talk to you more about this, if they want to learn more about what you're doing at Sourcery in terms of taking all this and slamming it into a pretty kick-ass fixture schedule builder with a community that's also surrounded by it. How can people get in touch with you?
I mean, I always say LinkedIn's great. I keep an eye on those, and it's just easy. You know, you could. I love that channel of communication. You can just search for me on there and reach out. That's always the best way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Good luck with everything that you're still building for Sourcery. I know you just released version 2.0, which is a big milestone for you guys. I'm sure 3 is already planned and mapped, and,
exactly.
and 4 and 5 are on the vision board. But, you know, on behalf of people who love watching things innovate, and also people who need more time back in their pockets, thanks for taking that leap of faith into your own entrepreneurial journey to support an industry that is ripe for it. We'll talk to you soon, Paul.
Cheers.